You know, people always talk about how the open road represents freedom, that classic American dream of just you and the horizon. But after what happened back in April, I don't see it that way anymore. Because to me, the road is just a thin ribbon of asphalt stretched over a dark, hungry void that doesn't care if you make it home or not. My name's Mark, and I'm just a regular guy who spent too many years thinking that the worst thing that could happen at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday was a flat tire or a deer jumping out of the brush. But I learned the hard way that there are things out there much older and much meaner than any animal, things that linger in the blind spots of your rearview mirror. It started as a simple trip back from a car meet in the city, just me and my mom in the passenger seat. The kind of quiet drive where the only sound is the low hum of the tires and the occasional crackle of a radio station losing its signal, and we were making good time on this stretch of highway that felt like it belonged to another century. I remember the moon was just a sliver, not enough to really see anything beyond the reach of my high beams, and I was doing about 6, feeling that heavy pull of the toy hauler I was towing behind us, when suddenly the world just shifted. There, right in the dead center of the lane, with this tiny, stationary shape, and for a split second, my brain refused to process it, like it was trying to protect me from the reality of what I was seeing, which was a small child in a blue parka just standing there, staring into the dark. There was no time to slam the brakes, not with 3 tons of steel behind me that would have jackknifed and crushed us both. So I had to make this split-second, heart-stopping swerve, feeling the trailer sway like a pendulum, and I swear to God, I felt the wind of our passage brush against that kid's sleeve. My mom let out this strangled gasp, her hands flying to the dashboard. And the first thing she did was grab her phone to call the cops, because you don't just leave a kid out there, not in the middle of nowhere, miles from any town. The dispatcher's voice was so calm, so professional, telling us they already had units in the area and that we should just keep driving for our own safety. And then, about an hour later, when I called back just to check, the guy on the other end told me they'd found him. He said the kid was safe, being returned to his parents as we spoke, and I felt this massive, physical weight lift off my chest. You know, that feeling of okay? The world isn't a total nightmare today, but that relief didn't even last until sunrise. Once I got home and the adrenaline started to fade, I pulled the SD card from my dash cam because I wanted to see it again. I wanted to prove to myself I wasn't crazy. But when I hit play and slowed the footage down, my blood just turned to ice. On the screen, the child didn't have a face, just a smooth, pale surface where features should be, and his feet, they weren't touching the pavement. They were hovering just an inch above the yellow line. And he didn't move a muscle as my truck roared past him at 70 miles an hour. I posted the clip online, thinking maybe someone would have an explanation, and that's when the local sheriff's department put out an official statement saying they never found a kid. They never even received another report, and that the officer I spoke to on the phone didn't exist in their records. That was the moment I realized that whatever had answered the phone that night wasn't interested in help. It was interested in making sure I didn't turn back. And as I sat there in my kitchen with the sun coming up, I realized the woman I'd seen crawling on the road a few miles further down wasn't a hallucination either. She was drenched. I mean, absolutely soaked to the bone, and whether that was barely 40 degrees, and she was clawing at the asphalt like she was trying to dig her way into the earth, her eyes wide and glassy, reflecting my headlights like a cat's. I'd almost stopped for her. I really had. But something in my gut, that primitive, lizard brain instinct that screams at you when a predator is near, told me to keep my foot on the gas, and thank God I did, because as I passed her, I saw the dig marks she was making. They weren't handprints. They were deep, jagged grooves in the shoulder of the road, like something with claws had been dragged, kicking and screaming, toward the river. The air in the cab felt heavy, like the oxygen was being replaced by something thick and metallic, and my mom had gone completely silent. Her eyes locked on the darkness ahead, as if she was afraid that looking away would let something in. We rounded this long, sweeping curve where the trees leaned over the road like skeletal ribs, and that's when I saw them, 2 figures, impossibly tall and spindly, dragging something heavy and wrapped in gray plastic across the highway. It wasn't an animal, and it wasn't a carpet. It had the unmistakable shape of a human torso, and they moved with this jerky, stop-motion rhythm that made my skin crawl. I didn't slow down this time. I just gripped the wheel until my knuckles went white and aimed for the gap between them, and for a second, one of them looked up, and I saw a flash of white, not a face, but a hood, a dirty white pillowcase with 2 jagged holes cut for eyes. Exactly like those old stories about the Phantom of Texarkana. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird, and just when I thought we were clear, this pair of headlights slammed into my rearview. Coming out of nowhere, no warning, just 2 blinding orbs of light that felt like they were burning into the back of my skull. The car behind me wasn't just driving, it was hunting, swerving when I swerved, accelerating when I floored it. The driver, leaning on the horn in these long, rhythmic rhythmic blasts that sounded like a funeral dirge. I could see the silhouette of the driver in the flashes of his high beams, and he was wearing that same white hood, leaning over the steering wheel with this frantic, kinetic energy that made me realize this wasn't road rage, this was a ritual. "Don't look back, Mom, just don't look back," I whispered, though my own voice sounded like it belonged to a stranger. And I pushed that old engine harder than I ever thought possible. The toy hauler behind us screaming as the tires smoked on the asphalt. We hit a construction zone, the orange barrels flying past like ghosts, and I saw a gap in the concrete barriers where the road was still just raw dirt and gravel, and without thinking, I yanked the wheel, sending us sliding into the construction site. The car behind me didn't follow. It just stopped dead at the entrance, the headlights idling in the dust we'd kicked up, and for a long minute, we just sat there in the dark, the only sound being the ticking of my cooling engine and my own ragged breath. I looked at the dashcam monitor again, the little red light blinking like a heartbeat, and I saw that the footage from the last 10 minutes was just static, no figures. No car, no lights, just a screen full of gray snow. That's the thing about these roads. See, they don't just take your life, they take your reality. They strip away everything you think you know about how the world works until you're left shivering in a truck cab, wondering if you ever really left that highway at all. I made it home, obviously, but I don't drive at night anymore. And every time I hear a car idling outside my house or see a flicker of white in the woods, I wonder if that guy in the hood is still out there, waiting for me to hit the high beams one more time. Because once you've seen what's hiding in the shadows of the Hume Highway or the back roads of Michigan, you realize that the road doesn't go from point A to point B. It goes deep into a place where the lights don't reach. And some of us never really come back from the trip. Do you think you're safe because you have a cell phone and a GPS and a heavy truck? But none of that matters when the person on the other end of the line is the one who put the child in the road to begin with. And as I sit here telling you this, I can still feel that cold, damp wind from the river. And I can still see those claw marks in the dirt, reminding me that the only reason I'm alive is because I was just a little bit faster than whatever was dragging that heavy plastic bag into the trees. So next time you're out there and you see something small and blue standing in your lane, or you see a pair of headlights that feels just a little too hungry, don't tap the brakes. Don't look for a reason. And for the love of God, don't call for help, because on these roads, help is just another word for the hunter who hasn't caught you yet.